Welcome to Mask Live. Today we are here with Dr. Susan Wilder from Lifescape Premier. We will be discussing worries on the mind, how to help our children deal with any fears they have during these current times. Thank you so much for being here, Dr. Wilder.
Thank you so much for having me.
We so appreciate your expertise, and we'd like to invite anyone who's joining us on Mask Live today to join in and ask the expert any questions you have. So feel free to type in any questions and we will answer your questions as we go along. We will be live for the next 15 minutes. So, Dr. Wilder, times are crazy. This has been going on for what we're coming up on a year.
Mhm.
And our poor children are watching us process all this. And I think, we hear that genetics and environment can have a big part of how our children process any fears and anything going on. So research shows that parents and if you have a parent or a sibling that suffers from depression or anxiety, you're 3 times more likely to have that. But today we have a lot of environmental stuff going on, not to mention the genetics. So how, as parents, can we help our kids manage these fears? And I know that maybe it starts with us.
Absolutely. I think we don't just hand down genes, we hand down habits. And so one of the first things that we need to do is stop and look in the mirror a little bit. And, are we practicing self-care for ourselves? What are our strategies for managing stress? Is it doom scrolling through social media all day long and getting, down these rabbit holes of conspiracy theories? Is it drinking maybe a little too much wine? Is what are our strategies, and are they healthy? And then for our kids, and for ourselves, I kind of use sort of a little 4-step process, which is notice what you're feeling, become mindful of it, normalize it, especially for your kids. Anyone who's watching some of the images we're watching on media today, or on the news, or hearing about the pandemic, or dealing with it directly as we are, if you're not a little bit anxious, then I wonder what's wrong with you, honestly. As I tell patients all the time, there are normal responses to abnormal situations. So normalize it. So notice, normalize, sympathize, maybe not empathize. I used to think empathy was a good thing, but it's not always. Sympathize. You can't always put ourselves in the place of that person. And then strategize. Well, what might make you feel better? Is that, watching Fox News or MSNBC all day long really in your best interest? Is that really helping you? Is that a habit that's doing anything productive in your life? And help kids understand, self-solve some of these problems. In fact, one of my colleagues, right in the midst of our summer surge, where we were really, really stressed, he said, I'm glad my kids are dealing with some hardship. This is good for them. And that's how you grow resilience, is by learning how to deal with hardship. And we have whole generations of Americans who've never had that, and who's we've enabled their disability because they're hothouse flowers, and they have no resilience. So they are turning to drugs and alcohol. And we've had deaths of despair tanking our life expectancy for years before the pandemic.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's interesting points that you bring up. I think that a couple of things come to mind for me right away. I mean, I love the self-care is so important for ourselves. And I love that you said normalize and sympathize. So normalize is really important. I mean, I think kids today hear the word anxiety and they think, oh, maybe I need a quick fix for that, right? But we deal with anxiety throughout our entire lives. So it's how do you process and how does it show up in your body? And how do you teach your kids to notice those things? It's so important, and not honestly something that I did with my own kids. And I think back,
Me neither.
and I wish I could have a do-over. But
Right.
with my own kids, I can remember saying to them when they had big emotions, and I can remember saying, use your words. Well, what did that mean to them? I
Mhm.
should be saying, use your words. Tell me how this feels in your body, right? Tell me how
Mhm.
this is showing up. And when you calm down, if you can share with me how it felt, right? And that it's okay to have big emotions. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to be sad. It's
Mhm.
okay to be confused or frustrated, right? We don't need a
Absolutely.
quick fix for this.
Right. I mean, that's our most dangerous problem as a country is we're looking for the quick fix. We're binging on things that do not serve us, and we're starving for things that we truly need, like meaning and purpose and contribution and connection and unconditional love, you know.
Exactly.
So
So in these times that we're stuck maybe home more with our family, what an opportunity we have to connect with our kids more and try to discuss those feelings when it's not in the heat of the moment, right? Because I always think like, you try, how important is it to try to help let's say you have a little who can't
mhm,
really articulate how these big emotions are showing up in their body, and they're just having a temper tantrum. you know
mhm.
how do you calm down together? Are there techniques that you can do to calm down together, or do you step aside and say, hold on, I need to calm down first, I need to think about
all,
this, so
right.
let
All
me
of the
take
above.
a break. And then when we're both calm, we can talk about this. Like,
I
what's the
mean,
best way to do that?
I often say I have a PhD in, colic and temper tantrums because, my first daughter was born right after I lost a sister to cancer. And so I was a bit of a holy mess. And, our kids reflect us. They reflect our moods. You can try to hide what as much as you can, but they know. They get it. They feel it. So I think sometimes it's very appropriate. I have on several occasions said to my kids, you know what? Mommy just needs a timeout right now. I'm feeling a little bit irritable. And one of my daughters, just this little innocent, beautiful face, just looks at me with her big blue eyes and says, it's okay, mommy. We're used to it.
They see,
So
they so know. They
they
so know.
totally do. They're on to you. So the other thing is you can, sometimes, I mean, my older daughter, you could not do timeouts with this child. She was so sensitive and so emotionally labile. Her timeouts were just us holding her and just being like Switzerland. You're
Yeah,
just here, you're safe, you're loved. I know you're mad. I get that you're mad. I get that you're angry. I get that you're sad, but we can't do anything in that space until you both are calmed down.
that's a really important point you bring up. So each child can be quite different. So what works for one may not work for another.
Right. Right.
And
Yep.
the other thing that you mentioned, so okay, the news, and so I think of, and me personally, I keep the news off in my home because, but
Good.
if our kids are on devices, my
All the
my
time.
my 19-year-old says, I get my news from Twitter, and I think, oh gosh, what is she seeing? So,
Right.
how do we help them? How much do we share? How much do we talk about? And how do we help them process what they might be seeing?
I think there is an absolutely critical need, proven by what's happened this year in our nation, that we teach everyone, not just children. And this is one of the things I think mask can be great at, is teaching how to be skeptics, how to evaluate information, filter it, fact check it, compare it against other sources. And science, as scientists and physicians, we are trained to be constantly skeptical, and we trained our children to be that way. We are inundated with disinformation, and I will tell you, as a healthcare provider on the front lines of this pandemic, dealing with the virus has been terrifying. Dealing with the disinformation has been overwhelmingly exhausting, to try to re-educate, I get so much, the pandemic videos and whatever from patients, and I have to watch them and I have to read them and I have to then talk to the patient one by one and say, here were these kernels of truth and here's where they got distorted. And when you hear inflammatory language like lies and tyranny and this kind of thing, those are when your little antenna should go up and say, maybe I need to read the other side. Maybe I need to try to argue both sides. My husband's an attorney, so our kids were always trained to debate the other side of everything, and they were really good at it.
So yeah, I mean, that's an incredible point. I think we need to teach our children to be critical thinkers.
Right, right.
I
And
mean,
it's not happening, and adults.
and it's not happening, and we need to model that. And so we do have an opportunity right now while our kids are at home to have these discussions. I love that you say you debate back and forth. That's really important. And just to process the information with critical thoughts and fact check, like you said, and be skeptics. I love that. Well,
Yeah.
we are about at 10:45, so we're gonna wrap it up for our Mask Live, but we have so much more to talk about on this topic. We're going to be talking about, sure, we can help our kids through emotions and fears, but how do we get the ones that don't want to talk, the quiet ones, to talk? And we're going to finish that up with our podcast. So if you'd like to join in to see this episode in its entirety, you can log into Mask Matters app. It's a free app that you can download on Google Play or on the Apple Store. And you can see this podcast in its entirety coming soon. So feel free to join us again in the future. We're going to be having another Mask Live at the end of this month. And thank you so much, Dr. Wilder from Lifescape Premier right here in town. She's a wonderful resource. We will be having her on Mask Live again. We appreciate you guys joining us today, and we hope you found this helpful.